Hello, you are listening to the Gamer Librarian Podcast, the best podcast you can find on this side of the multiverse. I am your host, Adrian, and today I will be talking about the Battlefield 6 beta, aliens, and more. Afterwards, be sure to subscribe to be notified when future episodes are released, and show your support by liking and leaving a comment. Thank you for joining. All right. Thank you for joining me on another lovely Monday afternoon. Now, this is still the era of the pre recorded episodes. We are almost to our 100th podcast episode, which is crazy to think that we've been going long enough to reach 100 episodes. That's about, less than 7 or 6% of the uh, succeeding podcasts out there, which is crazy, right? Those statistics or whatever. I mean, I just sit here and record on a mic every Monday and I put it out online. It's nothing fantastic, but 100 is a pretty cool milestone, and we're going to be trying to get into live streaming. We're going to try and live streaming the podcast episodes when we can and seeing how that works. The plan is typically Twitch and YouTube. Podbean maybe. Podbean's been weird. The last episode is not up yet. I think it's because I didn't add it to the playlist. So maybe now you'll see the podcast episode going up at the same time that this one comes out. You should see that hopefully. So sorry about that. Now, we have a little bit of news to get into before we get into a lot of the main stuff that I want to talk about because, we're not where we want to be with video games, in my opinion, but I made some progress. Okay. So before we get into video games, I just want to say that, right, video games, online spaces shouldn't cater to children. Like they shouldn't have to. In a lot of ways, like social media, um, and then like online games, like we're gonna say like the MMOs, World of Warcraft, probably one of them, Minecraft, and then Roblox. Games where children are playing, and the social integration or the multiplayer systems, the online systems, is also mixed in with the adult public community. And what I'm trying to get is that when you have that kind of mix, you need to really cater that space to the safety of children. Like you just have to, right? Now I don't think that like Minecraft or games like Pokemon or Elden Ring need to specifically just go out and start implementing things that make games just safer for kids for whatever reason, whether it's like online services or just content in the games that are meant for kids, right? I think that video games are for everybody, in my opinion. I was playing video games like GTA and Hitman, Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, some very very mature video games at a young age, and not young age. And now that I'm older, it definitely seems that video games have become far more an online space with a mix between adults from around the world and then just kids who can play the game for free, whether or not they're allowed to or pay for it or not. But games that are free, where anyone can access it, where the population daily could reach anywhere to 111 million daily users. Free games like Roblox need to do their services and have implementations that protect children, but it seems like it's just gone too far, and it hasn't had enough moderation. It hasn't had enough, implementation of the security services, and crimes have happened. And I would like to see that the real higher ups, the ones that deal with the moderation and the online services, and then the business management up there, just all of those heads, you know, get taken, just all of them. They need to be removed from at least that position, and then jail time, like real jail time, because they know about it. And that's just, pretty disgusting. So pretty glad to see that not just individuals are going after Roblox, but we're seeing states, actual government bodies going after companies like Roblox. I think that's awesome. So it's a topic that's going to be talked to death for like the next while. But now that it's in the public space, everyone knows about it. Obviously, Roblox has probably been dealing with it for a little bit longer, for a long time in the shadows. But since it's super in the light and everything's open about it, it's just good to see that there's probably going to hopefully be real progress in terms of the internal like workings of that company. But it's not an ending thing. It's not just going to end. There's always going to be bad people doing bad things. So like as a community just needs to be better as humans, as species. It just needs to be not a species that preys on each other in such horrific ways. That's pretty horrid. Also, on a lighter note, video games, right? So Enjoy got like a new update, which is pretty cool. I don't know if I'm gonna go back to Enjoy anytime soon. Those games typically take like a specifically long time. And then Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days dropped like $20 on the Switch earlier, which is pretty awesome. That was a pretty cool like deal you can get. Now, Inferus is a like pretty cool card adventure game. It seems like a first person roguelike card game. That seems pretty fun. I'm gonna try and get that when it comes out. Those were just the really quick articles that I just really wanted to mention, just really get out there, just because I try to have like, some small things to talk about, but big things are coming this week that I really want to touch on, and that's Gamescom. I mean, Gamescom's going to be really huge this year. And in my opinion, I think it's really all about one specific anticipated game, and maybe we'll get GTA like gameplay or something here. This might be the place that we might get GTA stuff. I'm very anticipated for GTA. It's probably the most anticipated game in the world in terms of like player count. But I think hardcore gamers are probably at second looking for that real sequel for Hollow Knight. That hardcore platforming like action kind of game, and I think we haven't seen it for a while simply because they probably be waiting on co-op, and, making it run on things like the Switch and PC at the same time. I think things like that is pretty crazy for their relatively small team. Who could say how they're doing right now? But it's supposedly going to be in a playable state for people here at Gamescom, which is going to be insane. And that's a pretty big update. Now, like GTA, obviously, that's right there. I think the only other game would be like Elder Scrolls 6. Like, if we talk about the top three most anticipated video games of the gamer space, it's most likely GTA 6, Hollow Knight 2, Silk Song, and absolutely Elder Scrolls 6, right? It's just obviously those. Now, there's obviously one of the other games that we're going to be anticipated here. I guess Black Desert comes back. They're like MMO game, and I guess they have like a single player type game that I haven't really kept up on. Crimson Desert, yeah, that's a pretty cool franchise. I played maybe 50 hours of Black Desert, and it's just one of the ones that I just dropped in terms of the MMOs. Now, we're obviously going to get Black Ops. I think Black Ops 7 or whatever they were doing. I think that was teased maybe a little bit earlier. Um, and then we get games like Indiana Jones is coming back. Enjoy, like I just mentioned earlier with their update. Little Nightmares 3. I like Little Nightmares. That was a series that, I thought they could do a lot more. It was kind of definitely like it looks good for you know, uh an isometric kind of survival game, like a puzzle game. But I thought they could have done a lot more in terms of its thematic stuff. And part of it was definitely with like the enemies working part of the background, but I just kind of felt like it had a lot more potential. And Little Nightmares 1 and 2 definitely didn't like feel like it was all of its full potential. Maybe Little Nightmares 3 could do that for its, scary vibes with this co-op stuff really that could be even better. But who could say? Not really super keen on playing Little Nightmares 3 for right now. Now, um, Pragmata is a pretty insane game that I'm pretty excited to look forward to. Its gameplay looks wonky and crazy with the using the girl to like hack things as you fight them. Kind of like I guess the Ubisoft hacking game mixed with like the um dinosaurs from Horizon Zero Dawn, all that kind of stuff. Um, right, we're getting Lucy this week for Guilty Gear Strive, which I've been super excited for. I haven't played Guilty Gear Strive in a real motivated way because that was definitely a fun game to play online. It had a fun roster of characters to try and deal with. It has really good mechanics, so I'm excited to go back and play it. Lucy's from Cyberpunk, which is pretty crazy. Now, Warhammer, I guess, is coming back too. We're getting like Mechanicus. I never played that game, but Space Marine 2 might be coming back for its like DLC updates. And we'll probably get a few announcements, things to be teased for like game of the year type announcements. So that's probably where we're going to see GTA at most, maybe. So Right, we're at the tail end of that like video game announcement time, which I'm, super excited about, right? Because this is like it. And I think the only last thing between Gamescom and Game of the Year is Tokyo Game Show. Maybe some like PAX stuff, but I don't really keep up with PAX. It's usually like the E3 timeframe stuff, Gamescom and Game of the Year. Since like 2013, 2014, that's typically been the entire kind of vibe of the gaming space with the gaming announcements. You typically don't get a lot of saddle drops for big titles. You only get them at like these, big giant showcases. Now, video games, that's video game news, right? Now, I've been saying we would get back into Metal Gear Solid, but I haven't been feeling a whole lot of single player games, right? Metal Gear Solid's very involved. You have to be very, you know, into that kind of gameplay style, at least like the way it's made back then. The controls are clunky, and the camera is definitely something to deal with on like your first playthrough. And it's like I don't have all this much time to learn and devote to this game at once, so I have been using a walkthrough for a majority of the game, especially those first two games. Like if I didn't use a walkthrough for those first two games, it never would have happened. It would have taken me like way too long. It's just like time. I got a full time job here, but I've been feeling multiplayer games, and we're gonna start off with one that was a real big shock to get back into because it's one that was a big turnoff. I think maybe we tried it out earlier in the podcast just for a little bit, but the game is Fallout 76. This game has been talked about to nauseum, like pure nauseum. And I decided to go back to it because I was like, you know, I'm not really playing ESO typically all that much unless I'm with my friends. And I was like, this is a good like community game to play just on its own. And it's one that I haven't really devoted much time into except for uh playthrough that maybe got me like 3 hours in, and the game like bugged out and crashed, and I was like, oh, this is not good. What made me get back into this game was the fishing mini game, and I was like, all right, I'll at least play until I get to whenever I can start fishing. And you don't get access to fishing right away, at least at first. Like I didn't um, look it up or anything. I just wanted to like experience the game and be like, I'm going until I fish. And I kept finding like fishing rods, like during the playthrough, like broken fishing rods. Like, all right, I'll just maybe repair these, or like you could buy them somewhere. And at some point, like maybe like 30 hours in, I don't really think about doing anything with it until you accidentally go to the area of the mire and you go and find the fishing location where it gives you I guess the fishing mechanic, because I didn't see this option when you go in like in the water, but fishing mechanic is weird. You don't like equip a fishing rod or anything like in other games. You just look at the water and then you like press a button, hold it, and you start fishing. It's totally fine. You have like a thing in your inventory. It doesn't really take up space that much, which is pretty nice. So the fishing mini game is pretty simple. I like it, and I was like, all right, this isn't too bad. Fallout 76 is definitely really fun to play. Like as someone who experienced Fallout 76 when there were not NPCs in the game, it's night and day. Like it's night and day of the kind of world that you're experiencing here. Now, one thing I will say is that I do think that there isn't enough like NPCs just in the world. And you notice that when it comes to like the raiders and stuff. I mean, there's typically just encampments of areas, and the raiders are minimal if any. I think there's like an expansion that does add in a lot more, which is pretty cool, but there isn't like roaming bands of them like in the woods like you find the bears and stuff, or just like walking through some of the cities. It's a lot of scorched around, which is okay, right? I mean, that's kind of the theme here. The scorched is like the main new enemy kind of, but and then most of the NPCs don't have that same kind of dialogue tree options that you get in a lot of other games where it doesn't really necessarily have to lead to a quest, but you at least get like, a good hefty 3 to 5 minutes of, dialogue to listen to, which may not be the entire premise for this kind of game, but as somebody who's played the earlier games, it's definitely like, noticeable. And I will say that I probably would prefer 76 in some degree over just 4, to me personally, I disliked four. Four had a very bad, I think, faction system overall, just picking the factions and the options you were forced to do with them. And then the premise was kind of like you could foresee that for the whole time. But at the very least, like now experiencing the main story with NPCs, like characters that are affected by the main story as you go along in some way, very enjoyable, very, very enjoyable. And it's cool playing the game like with other people. That is an aspect of the game that I think is severely overlooked for the kind of experience that it offers. Because you can play the game solo. I've been playing the game solo, and you can play the game solo in public groups where you just join people. It could be casually where you just, do your own thing solo and you're inexperienced together. And the longer you're in a group, the more experience you get. It's like multiplies, which is pretty convenient, especially when you start seeing people with their level characters of like in the four digits, right? I'm still on level like 53, so it's crazy to see what the level stuff is now. But I think that the multiplayer Fallout experience is definitely there now. It may have not been the same in like 2017 or whenever the game came out, way back when, but for what it's offering now, it's pretty good, and I'm pretty hopeful for what the rest of it has to do to keep me like interested in it because I think there's an Atlantic City DLC where you go to like um, New Jersey. I think that's what it was, but I know that there's the pit one. We didn't do the pit yet. I'm probably gonna do that now on level 50. I think that's when you can do it. Once I finish the main quest, we still have to, drop the nuke. I just run the Enclave, which is pretty crazy. It's nice, and this has been a really fun game. Just really put in a bunch of hours on all at once, and then just see how far I can get into it. And then I don't think I'm gonna ever subscribe to the subscription nonsense to it, but the cosmeticness of it, I think, definitely is attractive to some people, and I think that the fact that you can get some of these stuff for free, I think through just like maybe not finding them, but people can give them to you. You can get them through quests and stuff like that. Some of the cosmetic stuff, which is pretty worthwhile. Upon like building your base and all that kind of stuff, I think that's definitely a an aspect that's pretty good. Now, a different Bethesda online game that we've been playing is Elder Scrolls Online, and we're not super far on the Pine Bearers characters yet, but we will be, right? We're still playing the game, the RPG tabletop game. We just entered Morrowind, and it's been pretty crazy, but Elder Scrolls Online is probably going to be a decent endeavor for the end of the summer and then the fall. So maybe we'll be talking about that in a little bit of length, but there's another multiplayer game that I want to give a shout out to because this one was a shock. It was a real shock to see it, deliver on the way it did. A functioning beta, and that's Battlefield 6. What a supposed comeback. What a turnaround for at least that franchise, right? Like not EA. This isn't like just talking about EA, right? All the kudos to the developers who put together this beta so far. It's not a full-fledged game, right? But they at least put out a functioning beta for a game that I think delivers on a good Battlefield experience. So far, I think the maps offer a relatively decent mix of some relative openness for, just space and vehicles and stuff. And then you get like the close quarters combat, which is crazy. You get team based stuff inside of these buildings that can be destroyed. So far, the destruction works out super well. Buildings don't just crumble like immediately; they actually have a little bit of you know, breath to them. You get some leeway with the damage for most things, right? C4 and tanks giving, but haven't done a lot of flying yet with the helicopters and the jets. But so far, as someone who played a relatively decent amount of Battlefield 3 and 4, right? I wasn't a big player during like the Battlefield 2 Bad Company days, but the Battlefield series has always been a military shooter that I thought really could have reached big heights, but I think maybe obviously with like the corporate greed, getting games out on certain times and stuff like that probably hurt it. But I think that if we're going to be in an era of multiplayer shooters or multiplayer anything, you need to start thinking of your game in like 10-year lifespans, like 15, 20-year lifespans, not in terms of like its development, but just its like its actual breadth in the market. Like you need to think about how you're gonna have that game be entertaining, enticing, exciting for the people who start playing it from the very beginning, who've been following it like from its very announcement, from the beta all the way up. Things like your stats not carrying over. I don't know. I don't think we're in an era for that. I mean, dude, like it's the same accounts really for the most part. At least mine. I'm not going to do anything else. But the crossplay is nice. The crossplay is a good thing that I think is gonna probably keep that game afloat for a good while. But battle passes, man. This game will most certainly have a battle pass, like probably just to make it serviceable in terms of like the online scope. I mean, I don't know this for sure. I'd never looked this up. This is what my friend told me that I played with literally yesterday with Battlefield. But he was saying that like apparently it's gonna be a battle royale mode. I mean, maybe that's fine. I think battle royale is a decent mode. People like that. But I think that with battle royale, that kind of experience with Battlefield is really special, right? The destructible buildings, the vehicles, and then like the very militarized kind of aesthetic of it is really fun. So hoping that's gonna be really cool. But with Battle Pass, you're gonna have like all this cosmetic and stuff. I don't think they should start having like guns or maybe like mods for those things locked behind Battle Passes. I don't know about guns and stuff or classes, but like emblems or name tags, whatever the fuck, that's decent. That's decent stuff that people can like strive to earn for and all that stuff. Maybe like call signs or team names, something like that, squad names, whatever. Who could say? But Battlefield 6 has been pretty pretty great for the time being that it's been out. Only really got like mm, 6 10 hours in. Got to rank 17, and then the beta ends like uh, 4 a.m. this morning. So like I just deleted it last night. But overall, that's been really really fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably be getting Battlefield 6 launch just because the friends will be gonna be getting it, and it's gonna be fun playing with them. Military shooters or something that's like you know it's gonna be something to say. It was very topical because it's like, how do you make them feel realistic without being, relevant? I think that's very, very hard to do, especially when they're modern, right? We're talking about places where like we're fighting in very, very poor areas, and then we're also fighting in very urban, familiar areas for some people. Like it's very familiar for me, for some specific areas, but overall, I think that the shooter genre is gonna, keep going. People are gonna love it. But this game lives or dies on whether it like authenticates its military experience or if it caters to something like skins. Right? I don't think skins are gonna permeate into this game. I hope not. But I think that if you want to keep the game feeling authentic to something called Battlefield, it should just stick to things in the battlefield. But that's all. That's all I could really say for someone who's been playing these shooter games for like forever, right? I played like World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Battlefield 3 and 4, Hardline. I think Hardline was really fun. That was a really cool twist, right, with the bank cop robber thing. I like that. That was cool. But overall, video games, video games, video games. We have something really quick before we get to our very final topic here, and that's manga, right? Manga is something that we try to follow here relatively on and off. Now we're behind in a few, but the ones that we really keep up on, we try to. And that's One Piece, right? One Piece 1157 came out, and that one has been really, really eye opening because now we're seeing like how the government and the pirate kind of politics really entwine now in terms of like the current situation, right? I mean, you could say that it's always been a thing, but now we're seeing like how the drain is spiraling in terms of the story, not in terms of like it's unraveling because it's we're not learning more. It's just going deeper and deeper. It's crazy to see that now we're having like countries be said to turn on pirate groups that saved them now in the past, all because they want to be part of the world government, which is what it's happening with Elbaf. It's crazy. So that's basically, literally just of it. We have a little bit more of, small lore stuff that I have theories on. Don't really want to say them right now, but I have theories on them. But it's going to be crazy. Now, Black Clover is a manga that I think doesn't get a lot of the hype that it deserves because it's definitely a mm, a mild show. It's not something where it's like Jujutsu Kaisen or Attack on Titan gritty, right? And it's definitely not something where the fights are even all that insane. But I think that it has really great vibes. I think its vibes match something like Fire Force in terms of the mangas that we've been reading so far. I think that they're very lighthearted in that same way. Something like My Hero Academia for a lot of ways, right? They're still maintain a relatively decent lightheartedness while being like cartoony and then still having some raw, real stuff in it. But Black Clover has been something that we've been reading here for the podcast. It's been a crazy ride, and I think it's going to be over relatively soon. I think we'll probably cap out about 390. Probably be the end of it. They're probably not gonna get to 400. No, no, sure. I think we maybe got 3 to 5 chapters left, but we just got 3 chapters dumped on us on the 11th, I think, and that was crazy. Um, the fight with the king is still wrapping up, and now Asta is back in the fight. Is gonna rejoin Yuna. We're probably gonna get like 2 or 3, you know, just last few chapters of that fight specifically, and then 2 wrap up chapters, and then it'll be over, which is crazy to see. And then maybe we'll get on the anime and talk about that for a little bit. But that's specifically just it for the manga. Not a big manga push that we've had in lately, but we try to keep up on them when we can. Right? We've been reading things like Dragon Ball, obviously, waiting for that to come back. R.I.P. Toriyama. And then we got JoJo's. Right? We reread all of JoJo Lands. That was pretty fun. And reading, right? We've been reading a few things just to get into this one specific topic that we're going to wrap up on. And these few things have just one very simple common theme. They're centered around the alien universe. And these are comics. Now, we're not no stranger to Alien here on the podcast in any way, but you know, Alien comics are something where it's like if it has alien in the title, I'll read it. I'll read it. And even if it has things of, you know, story type vibes that I don't even meld about, I don't even care. I'll read it because it's Alien. Some of the times when you read stories, you get disappointed just because something just like maybe happens in it, or there's a certain character in it, or there's just like an art style that really just doesn't vibe with you. A lot of reasons you wouldn't like something. Now, I'm just gonna not really go into too much detail. I think that you should read things for yourself. You should read things for yourself and experience them. But I've read Alien for a while. I've been reading Alien stories for a long time. Big fan of the video games, big fan of the crossover Predator movies, and of course, the movies, right? Of course. Now, sometimes Alien has things in it that I don't necessarily really like. And that's been a constant thing forever. I think it's something as an Alien fan, I'm just going to have to get over it. I'm just going to have to get over it. It's just going to have to happen because there's just always going to be things and things that you don't like and just wait, whatever. So I think I'm come to the terms that, as long as it has Alien in it, I don't care. I'm going to like it. Reading these Alien comics have really solidified that with me because some of them have things that I just don't necessarily enjoy. And we're just going to read off some of them in this part, just really specifically. One of them is Alien Hive. Alien Hive has a panel where an alien just grows a gun, just, just forms a gun out of their own body, and you don't even see him use it. That's all I have to say. Now, I don't specifically want to show pictures. That's not something I really do here. Like, if people want to go and look up gameplay or things like that, they can do it. But I have an issue right here in my hand where Alien grew a gun. Yeah, happened. That's totally fine. Totally fine. The premise of the story of that one, not necessarily interesting, but that was a moment where it was like, oh, I hate this one. Purely hate it. The next one is Alien, the original years omnibus. Now, this one was a really special read because it has a really lot of cool stuff in it. We're not going to get into a whole lot of it, but specifically, this one has a theme in it where it takes some of the stories in it have characters from the movies and the, their their like timeline stories are different or their origin, whatever. Doesn't matter. That's a big turn off for a lot of people. And I think that sometimes it could work out really well. I think a lot of times it just doesn't work out so great. Now, the original Years Omnibus collects a good bit of things. It collects things like the 1988 1 through 6 run of Aliens, the 89 of 1 to 4 Earth War, which I specifically think is really cool. It collects genocides, obviously Hive, Tribe, Newt's Tale, Clone Marines, and then Dark Horse stuff, and then like some fifth anniversary special. All that's really cool. But specifically, I read it because it had the Alien Earth War series. I never read Earth War as a comic. I've only read the novelization of it, and I just thought it would be really cool to experience that again. And when I was younger, I was like, "Oh, this is cool. It's like a different version of the story." Where like some of these characters have different endings. But then I was like, "Man, I don't know. To me, it's just like the Star Wars effect, where like you really want things to like have this canonicity to them as like a fan, but you're never gonna get it, and that's something you gotta accept. You just kind of like get over it. But the omnibus is really cool. I think you can probably still purchase that now, just because you can. I think it came out very recently to celebrate the Marvel Comics run of them. But the last comic that I read is Alien: Music of the Spheres, and this is probably my favorite out of the three Aliens comics that I've read in terms of this entire like just week session. And specifically that's because it had a really good theme. The theme was set around music. The theme had very little to specifically do with like trying to control an alien, which in my opinion is a like a theme between the alien like storylines that I specifically always hate. I don't know. Like the controlling the aliens never been something that I enjoyed as a fan of the series, but Music of the Spheres is really awesome. And then it has a really cool little glimpse into the like music scene of the time of Alien, which is really dope. Where like people obviously use cybernetics to like enhance their bodies to play instruments, which is sick. That's so cool. But then we have the thing where like the AIs are impersonating or becoming people like Elvis or like Michael Jackson or you know famous real people and just performing their music forever and ever and ever, right? That's something that's very real, very topical, something that's really, really you know on the minds of a lot of people. It's something very, very relevant. And Alien has always been something that's been like on that teetering side of relevance with like its topics. Obviously, people just like, oh, it's an alien horror movie, it's just about alien. But no, 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 no. Like the alien is just like a force of nature, right? And if we're not going to like Prometheus or whatever and being like, oh, it was like man made by the fucking alien android guy, right? No, it was like the alien is like a force of nature, right? It's just like a creature, right? Like anything, for the most part. It's here because it adapted. But humans, we're here. We adapted, right? We did, but we're like using our brains to make things that are making us better or could turn on us, which is crazy, right? Very, very sci-fi. But Music of the Spears was really cool. Really enjoyed it. Now, before we end, Alien Earth is here. We're in a time where we're on a physical Earth in an alien like screen TV film thing, right? It's not a movie this time, it's a TV show which is insane. This one had a really, really great start. We only have the first two episodes, but I think they're off to a really great start. Now, I'm going to say right now, I've mentioned a lot of things in alien movies and alien themes that really piss me off. There's a new thing in this show that does piss me off, and I don't know where it's going with it. And we're going to talk about it right here. We're just going to spoil it right here. In the first two episodes, they show you that like they put dying kids' brains into the synth bodies, and that they're just synth now. They live as synths. I don't know. That seems like a weird thing to add in. I don't know if I like that. That's not something I really like enjoy. I don't know why that's like the premise because the way it's implemented is like they're there's these kids and they're thrown into this alien scenario. We're not going to say specifically what happens. Just like go watch it, but they're thrown into this alien scenario like they're the fucking X-Men, like they're the X-Force or something. And to me, that's like so weird. That to me, that's like so odd. But other than that, like yeah, it's a solid show. It has really good moments with the alien. It has good vibes that feel like Alien and Aliens, which is so sick, so sick. And yeah, that's really all I could say about it. Like other than those weird kid synths, I don't really care. The show is pretty good. I'm excited to see what the next episode is on Wednesday. It's going to be insane. Now, that's basically it. That's all we got to talk about. We're going to be gearing up for the live podcast episodes, live streamed ones, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.